Welcome to Will It Work? I'm Kevin. Today we're looking at the Odyssey. This is the very first home TV video game system. It was released by Magnavox in 1972, so that is putting it at just about 50 years old. Just about. I don't think this is a complete set. I do have an extra base unit that somebody gave me at one point for spare parts. But I'll zoom out, and I doubt, I'm just going to say right off the bat, because of the age, I doubt that the unit is going to function. I've never tried it. It's really old. It's analog, doesn't have microchips, but it's been in this case for a very long time. Now, as far as I know, not all Odysseys came with this hard plastic case, but I don't think it's rare, maybe a bit uncommon. So inside here we have all kinds of stuff because the unit itself wasn't designed like in such a way that, you know, it was going to be a standalone system. They kind of made it more like an electronic board game. It had additional things like some of these questions and answer cards for different games. There was paper money and such. Depends on which game you want to play. Some sort of identification, I guess, there. States, trivia type facts, maybe. Haven't played all those games. And each one of these was related to a cartridge like these. And these are the cartridges. But really, all these are jumper boards, meaning there's no logic on these. They just sort of, you know, cross the right circuit in order to make the Odyssey behave in a different way when that particular card is inserted into the system. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, an extra 2, 5, 6, 9, a 10, and an extra 6. So like I said, not a complete system, but that's okay. It's more about the history of it. I don't think too many people are going to want to go back and play most of these games. Now, it came with these overlays that you would have two different sizes, and you would lay them on the screen of your television set. So for instance, here's like a Western shooter type of thing, and my guess is that it would probably light up the different windows when the game is playing, and then you would use the gun, because there was a gun sold for this, to shoot at the various people in the game. And that would be one of many. There was two sizes. This is the smaller size for like your 19-inch TV, and then the larger size for your 26-inch television set. Now, I don't know for sure if that's what this one was for. I don't even know if I have all the overlays that it originally came with. It came with some poker chips and things too. You know, I only have a couple of different overlays. You know, some that are tucked in here though, like a hockey one, and then there's like a sort of a baccarat, you know, roulette wheel type of betting board on that side. There's like a football thing on this side. Here's the wheel. There's like a haunted house. You know, identify the kids thing. There's a maze. So you get the idea, though. This thing, the intention of this was to give you a really sort of broad brush of a bunch of different games that you could play with it. You know, with the family in front of the family TV. Now, in my opinion, I bought this a long time ago. Not in 1972, sometime in the 90s off of eBay. because it was the first one, and it wasn't particularly expensive at that time. It wasn't cheap, but it wasn't expensive. And I think that, I'm just going to move these out of the way. I think the person that probably sold this to me knew that this particular one, you know, may or may not work, or may not have been great. I think he owned a bunch of them, and, you know, pieced together a full set for himself, and then resold the ones out. But since this one came with an extra base unit, it was like, well, you could always repair it if you wanted to. So let's take a look at it a little bit more in depth. So we have our original switch box here. This is certainly old school. You know, this was like the first switch box probably for something like this. This has existed before all Pong systems, so this was the blueprint. Game and TV. And then, you know, your wire went there. One of 4 PAS chassis. Oh no, it's brown just like the unit. 75 ohm for cable, coax on the bottom. This would kind of hook on to the back of the TV set. It's kind of interesting. Don't really see them like that. Now this power adapter is not original, I don't think. No, National Semiconductor. It's very thin. I'm not sure it actually powers this. Doesn't look like it. Looks like the hole's bigger than what this is. I don't think this adapter's right. So we'll put that to the side. And then we have these really unusual controllers. Almost look like old, like, shavers from the 70s or something. Electric shaver. So you had horizontal control and vertical control. Reset button on the unit. Plus you could provide a little bit more English on the ball. It's like the angle when you hit it. If you were playing in the Pong game. So you had this sort of 2 sides that you could move things around on. And, you know, you're looking at the very first game controller for a home system, right? Not for arcade, but for a home system, this is the first one. It's in really good shape, actually. For what it is, you know, I haven't used it. And I have another one over there, as well as the RF cable wire. And then we have the base unit itself, which it does take batteries, which is good, because I'm not quite sure what we're going to do with the adapter in that case, but I don't know if it'll work. It is pretty clean, though. Magnavox company, ITL 200, BK12, etc. You know, there's a lot of different models of these. They're all similar, but they were manufactured for different places and areas and things. Well, the Wikipedia has a pretty good write-up on it. It looks like here we have, you know, these really complex joystick ports. Looks like a 12-pin. And then we have the accessory port, which was for the light gun. And then we have a speed switch, as well as a way to center the game on the board. External power, well, maybe that adapter will work. It's small enough. I thought that that would go here, but this is actually the game cord. The game cord is one of the more unusual ones we've seen before, where you actually have to punch it in sort of into the box itself, like so. And so I'm going to have to use this particular switch box in order to try the system out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to wire it all up to the VCR, and then we'll see if we can get a picture out of this thing. But I'm not expecting it to work. I just want to say, if it does, hallelujah. We've seen a miracle today. But overall, the condition of the system is really nice. I do have another base system. I don't know if that'll work. But if this one doesn't, we'll go ahead and put some batteries in the other one and just see if sparks and fire shoots out of it. But if not, we'll see if it works. Now, I don't have any instructions, so I don't have a way to play any of these games according to the original rules. There were some dice, I think, too, that it originally came with. And I may have had those things at one time. I'm not sure. Here's how to get system or service on the Odyssey system after the first 3-month use period. Boy, interesting. Now, that being said, I'm sure there's somebody out there that was kind enough to copy the instructions and put them up on the internet, and they could be found if somebody actually wanted to play these original games. Has somebody emulated this for the MAME arcade system? Probably. But who knows? Anyway, Odyssey. Not Odyssey 1, although it is the first one, but this is just called Odyssey, 1972. Let's switch over to the video side and let's just see if we get anything out of it. Be really cool if we do. If not, though, we'll come right back here. We'll talk a little about what might be wrong with it, and then we'll call it a day. Here we go. Looking at the Odyssey. I'll tell you what, I was tinkering with this thing for a while here. I even tried the other one because I have another base unit. I wasn't able to get anything to work. And it's really difficult to look at this and try and figure out if it's working or not, because there's no power LED on it and there's no sound. And so, you know, when you're getting a static screen, you don't even really know if you've got power. Now, I certainly could have opened it up and get out the multimeter and everything, but I really didn't want to put that kind of effort into this, because if there was something wrong with it on the inside, it wasn't going to be something that I was going to be able to easily repair, I think, at this point. So I was probably, you know, just kind of like, well, I've tried a whole bunch of different carts. Let's see if I can, you know, mess around with it a little bit here and there. And I wasn't able to get it to work. So I unplugged it, and all of a sudden the screen went black because I put batteries in it. And I'm like, holy shit, I think I got a display. And lo and behold, we do. It's actually pretty clean, which is also really surprising. Now, you're like, all I see is a white block. That's right. You know, this is 1972. It's very early, and there's no on-screen score. There's no net, etc. Essentially, you know, most of this stuff was, you know, these blocks, depending on which game. Now, I have cartridge number 3 in here, and you can see me moving the block around a little bit. Now, let's see if the other controller will bring up its... Yeah, there it is. Let's move it back up a little bit. It's a little bit bouncy, but actually, you know, it's not too bad. Move it over to the left a little bit more here. I don't know how, you know, this is all analog, so I don't know how, you know, it tracks these things. It's probably all based on power variation, you know, increased voltage here, less voltage there, etc. So it's, you know, but we've got a couple of white blocks. Now, I don't know, I don't have the manual handy. Now, the manual is available online. I don't know which game this is. We're not here to really determine, you know, if any of these games are fun or anything like that. We're mostly just trying to see if it works. So this is game 3, and I think game 1 is tennis, which would be our normal Pong game. So I'm going to take this out, and I don't know if game 1 will work. We know game 3 will, but I will remove it. But at this point, what we do see here, just for the record, we do have a working Odyssey, which is terrific. Great. It's on channel 4, and both controllers work, and the signal is very clean. It's really, really nice. So let's try. Now, the interesting thing was also, when I was looking at this, there's no power button. Apparently, when you insert the cartridge, that actually turns on the power. So if you wanted to stop playing and not waste your batteries, you remove the cartridge in order to shut it off. So we're just going to pull the cartridge right out and put in cartridge 1. Kind of wish more video game companies had done that, like tie the power to the insertion of the cartridge, because then it wouldn't have made a difference if we just ripped the cartridge out when the system was on. You know what I mean? Whatever. All right, let's see. Let's pull out number 3. And let's go with number 1. Ah, there we go. And we got a ball. Interesting. So there is a center button on here. Let me see if I can move our field of play over a little bit here so it's a bit more centered. There we go. And then I guess I am just going to be a block. That's really interesting. I'm not like a paddle. Like I guess the first one was you just play as a block, and you could move anywhere in 3 dimensions on the court. Although I'm not sure how easy that would be playing with the fort. There's also an English dial, which I think is more or less about, when you strike it, how much it does. Now, there's a reset button on here, which is probably serve, so let's hit that. Oh, there it is. Shot the ball across the screen. Let's try that again. Now, I'm assuming there's no sound, but let's just plug the sound wires in and see if we just get static. Sounds like static. Yeah, so we'll do that. Just wanted to make sure. All right, let's try second player reset. Yeah, so I'm playing. I don't have the actual other monitor on, so I'm not sitting here in real time right now. I'm sort of delayed. So it's like the ball kind of goes the same place every time. I just want to see it bounce off my guy. Oh, yeah, so it worked. Well, I know that's not that interesting, but from a historical perspective, this is the very first one. This is the very first game system for the home, right? And they didn't know what they were doing. They didn't know, everything about it is new. I mean, controllers, they weren't a thing, right? These are on wires. They weren't built into the unit. They never thought their joystick, whatever. No idea. Nobody ever thought of that. It's 1972. Switch box, switching between the TV and the game system, totally new idea. Nobody had thought of that before, as far as I'm aware, unless there was something other than a video game system that needed a switch box, maybe. But in terms of a game switch box, totally new. Cartridges, basically, these are jumper boards, but you could switch variations of the games, based on which cartridge you put in. Basically came out with the idea of selecting games via cartridge. Nobody ever done that before, right? Totally new idea. Like all of it, like just all of it, first time TV game. So, it's pretty amazing that it started here, 50 years ago, basically, because it's, 1972, and today it's 2021, so 49 years, but whatever. We're close enough that we're looking at about 50 years, and it still works. You know what I mean? That's pretty cool. I mean, just Vietnam War was going on when this thing was out. It's crazy. But yeah, I don't think there's any sort of reason to own one to play any of these games, but it is sort of like if you wanted to see the very first edition of Pong, at the home and everything. And even I think this predates the arcade. I think Atari made Pong in the arcade, and I think Nolan Bushnell stole the idea from the Odyssey, and I believe they went to court over that, and the judge was like, "You obviously stole the idea," and Bushnell and Atari lost because Magnavox, came out with this idea. And, from there we got the rest of the arcade industry. I mean, obviously there was a lot more evolution after this, and even Odyssey or Magnavox themselves continued on with a series of much cheaper, much simpler Pong systems, and then sort of graduated to Magnavox Odyssey 2. And, Magnavox being Philips, They tinkered with other things here and there. Obviously, they did CDI, Philips CDI. Magnavox, I think Vectrex. Vectrex was like GCE, and then it became something else. Maybe it wasn't. I don't know. I'd have to look that up. But they've always kind of dabbled, but they never really, fully committed, I guess, except for, in the early days. But either way, yeah, so I'm pretty happy right now. I'm pretty happy this works. The whole show is called Will It Work? And it works. The oldest one. So we've all witnessed it functioning, and it's got a nice, fairly clean signal for what it is. And I find it kind of amazing that these guys were able to create something with such variation without any kind of microchips. Like, how do you do that? Like, how do you make a Pong game without, like, programming logic, without sitting there going, like, if the ball hits this and then goes to that, bounce this back or whatever, if and therefore, doing a lot of math, maybe programming the raster, etc. But here you're kind of like basically saying, like, if you wanted to draw that square, you'd probably be like, turn the luminance on between like this, spot and that spot, and then, the voltage variance from this equals that. I don't know, man. There's some good stuff on Pong Story. If you ever get a chance to read Pong Story about the early video game systems and how they were programmed, there's some really good stuff in there in just terms of how they did it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's not super techy, but it's also, fairly interesting in just some of the things they had to do to make these systems work. So I find it all pretty fascinating. Anyhow, thanks for watching. We're going to look through all of the Odysseys. This is the very first one and the very first game system ever. And then we will progress. Next up, they went to a series of hundreds. So the next one we're going to look at will be the Odyssey 100, and we'll see if these all work. The earlier you go, the less likely they are to function. But surprisingly, the analog systems that I've owned all worked. I think Telepong was the only one that was a little bit loopy, but Executive Tennis, we just looked at another one, Dimension, TV Sports by, it's in the series. And that was another analog. And here we've got the original analog one, where it all began. Kind of crazy. All right, I'll see you on the next video. Thanks for watching. See ya.